My name is Daniel Mercer. I was born in Ohio, raised in Pennsylvania, and had moved to Portland for work just 3 years ago. I never thought I'd sit down and recount this, but as I write, my hands shake, not from weakness, but from the memory of what happened last fall, the week my shadow became something else. It started one ordinary night when I was walking back from a late shift at Ironwood Diner. The city was damp from constant drizzle, and the sidewalks gleamed under the soft light of the street lamps. I wasn't paying much attention to myself, more to the chill in the air. Then I noticed it. My shadow didn't move the way I did. At first it was subtle, an arm delayed in lifting, a lag between steps. I blinked hard, brushed it off as fatigue, but halfway down Burnside Street, the shadow raised its head before I did. Even stranger, its lips moved. Friends, you enjoy listening to stories, but you don't subscribe to the channel or like the videos. I request you to please subscribe to the channel right now so that I get more motivation to bring you even more stories. If you help me reach 1,000 subscribers, I promise to bring you extremely scary stories with a truly real feel. 2 horror stories every single day. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and now let's move on to today's story. I froze. No one was around. The mist hung low, swallowing every sound. My own silhouette stood taller, sharper. Mine, but not quite. I put my hand against the brick wall, trying to steady myself. That's when the dark shape pulled free from my shoes, separating inch by inch as if the wall of light and dark no longer cared for rules. And then, for the very first time, I heard it breathe. "Daniel," it whispered, in my own voice, but hollow, empty. I don't expect anyone who reads this to believe me. Hell, I didn't believe myself. But the very next morning, when sunlight scattered across my apartment, I saw it again. My body was slouched on the couch, still waking up, but the shadow wasn't aligned. Instead of resting quietly at my feet, it was a step ahead, closer to the kitchen doorway, as though waiting for me to follow. People talk about paranoia, how your brain tricks you when you're sleep deprived. That excuse carried me for 2 days. I worked double shifts, came home exhausted, and still my silhouette drifted too freely. I tried to outrun it, flinging open the blinds at night so it had no canvas to grow on. Didn't matter. Under the glow of traffic lights, television, even the faint reflection of candles, it twisted and lengthened, watching. Always watching. By the 4th night, I understood it wasn't just copying me anymore. It was learning. That Friday, I decided to test it. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror, I raised my right arm quickly, almost like a soldier's salute. The shadow did the same, but slower, deliberately, like it was mocking me. And then I made a mistake. I asked it out loud, "What do you want?" Its head tilted. My own reflection didn't move, but the shadow on the tiled floor bent unnaturally, the skull elongating into something not human. It smiled, with my teeth. And then it spoke again. "To be whole." I stumbled backwards, hitting the edge of the tub. My hands shook so bad I dropped my toothbrush onto the floor. The shadow didn't lunge, didn't attack. It simply stood still, but closer now, its edges darkening. That's when the phone rang. It was my friend Natalie. She lived a few blocks from me and worked the same night shifts. She sounded frazzled, terrified even. "Dan," she whispered, "you need to tell me, have you seen your shadow move?" My entire body went cold. She described the same phenomenon, her shadow stepping away, mimicking her at first, then delaying, then whispering. She said it tried to block her from entering her apartment, lunging forward with elongated arms. That was the first moment I realized it wasn't just me. Something bigger was happening in Portland. It didn't stop there. The news barely touched on it. Scattered reports of mass hallucinations and collective delusions in the city. Workers at the docks refused to go out at night. Baristas claimed to see their own shadows wave at them. Streets emptied after sundown, and yet hospitals filled with people babbling about their reflections moving independently. But the true horror was this. People started vanishing. The police linked the disappearances to stress or drugs, but those of us who lived it knew each person gone had complained about their shadows first. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, mine wouldn't stop until it took me too. What made it worse was how cunning it became. At night, I saw it acting like me when I wasn't. In glimpses across frosted windows, I'd catch it smiling when I wasn't smiling, moving when I was still. Sometimes it stood behind me in the mirror while I sat across the room. By October, Portland wasn't Portland anymore. Boarded up houses, empty bars, a silence in the streets that reminded me of abandoned towns. Except this was still very much alive, crawling with something inhuman.
And then came the night I saw Natalie die, if you can call it death, when her shadow finally merged with her, folding into her body with a scream that wasn't hers. Her skin darkened, her eyes turned black as pitch, and when it was over, there was no Natalie left, only the thing wearing her face. By the second week of October, downtown Portland looked like an abandoned film set. The commuters, the late-night bar hoppers, the constant hum of traffic, all gone. But I was still here, because the one thing that terrified me more than staying was leaving. Natalie was gone. Or rather, what used to be Natalie. I saw her transformation through the crack of her apartment door. Her shadow had finally overpowered her. She screamed as it fused into her body, and by the time I forced the door open, she stood perfectly still. Her smile wasn't Natalie's anymore. It was wider, stretched. Her voice wasn't hers when she looked at me and said, "You'll be next." I slammed the door and ran until my lungs split. That was the last time I ever saw my best friend. The city changed after that. Those who remained were hunted by what they once considered extensions of themselves. Whole buildings were left with lights burning out permanently, as if their owners had simply faded. Maybe they had. At night, I could hear them. Voices, hundreds overlapping, whispering in hollow tones from cracks between streetlights. All shadows sounded the same. All shadows wanted the same thing: to be whole. I wasn't completely alone. I found others gathered in the basement of an abandoned library. There were 6 of them, 3 college kids, a mother with a 6-year-old son, and an old man who barely spoke but kept clutching a Bible with his trembling hands. We covered the basement in flood lamps, keeping every corner lit. It bought us time. Without shadow, the things couldn't enter. For 2 nights, it felt safe. Hope even glimmered. We shared food, stories, and theories. The old man called it the reclamation, swearing shadows were souls abandoned during creation. The college kids argued it was a government experiment gone wrong. The mother only wept quietly, saying nothing but rocking her boy like nothing outside was happening. Me? I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to survive. Problem was, I could feel mine growing stronger. Whenever I closed my eyes, even near the blinding lamps, it whispered behind me. Its voice was closer, clearer, like hot breath down my neck. On the 4th night in the basement, the lamps flickered. One of the bulbs burned out, plunging a corner into faint darkness. We panicked. I jumped up to replace it, but not fast enough. Out of the corner, something slid forward. It was the boy's shadow. He screamed, clutching his mother, but before we could even move, the thing leapt, wrapping around him like a shroud. The flood lamps blinked wildly as he thrashed, and when they steadied, the boy was gone. Not dead, just gone. His mother screamed, but the shadow shape that stood up had the boy's face, only darker, stretched, wrong. It didn't attack. It simply smiled, then melted back into the wall. We all knew then what the truth was. The lamps wouldn't hold forever. We weren't fighting them off. We were delaying the inevitable. 2 days later, through an old battery-powered radio, we caught a broadcast from Washington, D.C. The president himself addressed the nation. His voice shook as he described isolated phenomena of shadow detachment, urging citizens to remain in groups and use high heat or light to suppress visual anomalies. He didn't finish. Halfway through, a long silence consumed the airwaves. Then, a voice not his, but identical in tone, filled the radio. "To all the living," it said, flat and resonant, "we no longer borrow your shape. We take it back." The static returned, and no signal ever came again. That night, the survivors argued. Some wanted to flee by day, move east and outrun whatever outbreak this was. The old man insisted on prayer. Me, I felt my chest tighten every time I thought of leaving, because I knew my shadow was following no matter where I went. It wasn't outside anymore, it was inside. My body felt heavier, slower, as though the thing had one foot already through me. When I looked down at my arms, light still showed skin, but beneath shimmered something black, bleeding through like ink under parchment. I wasn't going to escape. By dawn, there were only 4 of us left alive in that library basement. The boy was gone, his mother an empty shell of sobs, until she finally threw herself into the dark corner where his shadow had been. We heard nothing after that. No scream, no sound, just silence. It was worse than any cry. The old man prayed louder now. His voice cracked and raw, his Bible shook in his hands. The college kids whispered escape plans, their voices frantic. I stayed quiet, because as much as I didn't want to admit it, my own body was betraying me. The bruised ink beneath my skin grew darker every hour, like veins filling with sludge. When the lamps flickered again, the kids bolted. They ran upstairs, kicking the fire door open, sunlight spilling into the stairwell. I wanted to stop them, but part of me wanted to follow. Outside, under sunlight, I felt safer. Surely they couldn't reach us there. Shadows belonged to light after all. I wasn't ready for the truth. We made it only 3 blocks. The streets looked broken, lined with scattered belongings, suitcases, shoes, dolls, like people had simply dropped everything mid-step and disappeared. Portland wasn't a city anymore. It was a graveyard where no corpses remained. Then one of the kids, a tall redhead named Ryan, froze. He gasped and pointed. His shadow wasn't following behind him. It was ahead, perfectly sharp in the glow of the morning sun, waiting at the end of the street. It raised its hand and beckoned, slowly like a fisherman drawing in the line. Before we could drag him away, Ryan dropped. His chest arched back, his eyes rolled white, and black smoke, or what looked like smoke, poured out of his mouth. His shadow didn't move. Ryan did, toward it, crawling on hands and knees until the light folded and swallowed them both. Where he had stood, nothing remained. We ran. Only Anna, the last surviving student, and I made it as far as the Hawthorne Bridge. From there, we saw it all. Across the highway, hundreds, maybe thousands, were dissolving into their own silhouettes. Some fought, most didn't.
The city pulsed with a strange rhythm, as though the shadows weren't individuals anymore. They had become a hive. Anna said nothing. Her face was pale, broken by quiet whimpers. She gripped my arm like a lifeline. "We'll go east, Mount Hood, higher ground, fewer people." But as I said the words, I felt mine stir again. It wasn't behind me. It was inside me, pounding with every heartbeat. And in the reflection of the water below, I saw it staring back up. It looked like me, yes, but with a grin carved too wide and eyes black pits. "Soon," it whispered in my head. "Soon, we'll be the same." We reached the edges of the city by dusk, hiding inside an abandoned roadside motel. The sign outside buzzed faintly, the last bulb stuttering like a dying star. Inside, dust lay thick on the counter. The room smelled like mold and old rain. But it was roof, walls, a door. Enough for one night. Anna collapsed on a bed, muttering to herself. I stood guard by the window. That's when I saw them. Figures across the parking lot. At first, they looked human. A crowd gathered, waiting. But their faces weren't faces. Shadows. Flat, blank, carved onto the skin like paint that bled down the body. They watched the motel, rows of them, silent, blinking in unison. And then, like a choir of broken voices, they whispered. Not outside, not through walls, directly inside my head. "Daniel Mercer, it is time to come home." I don't know how they knew my name. I don't want to know. That night in the motel was the longest of my life. They didn't try to break in. That would have been easier. Instead, they just stood there in the parking lot. Dozens of them, maybe 100, perfectly still, staring through the dusty motel windows. They didn't move, didn't breathe, but their presence crushed me like a weight pressing against my ribs. Anna wouldn't come out of the bathroom. She sat on the floor, rocking, muttering a prayer over and over. I held the motel door shut with a chair, even though I knew it made no difference. Shadows didn't need doors. What they wanted was inside. At some point around 3 a.m., the light outside the motel sign flickered out. Just died. That silence that followed. God, that silence still burns in me. Because when the bulb went out, they all moved at once. Not toward the motel. Not closer. No. They turned their heads upward. And in perfect unison, they whispered, "Dawn." I don't know if we slept. Maybe I blacked out. But when the first pale blue of morning cut across the motel wall, I crawled out of my daze and realized the bathroom door was open. Anna was gone. Not just gone, her shadow remained. On the floor, etched against the linoleum, twisted like she had fallen. I swear to you, it twitched. As I watched, it dragged itself across the tile, inch by inch, like it was searching for something to crawl into. I slammed the door shut before it could touch me, but the damage was done. Anna was just erased. One by one, they were all falling, and I was next. I couldn't stay in Portland. I packed what food scraps I had, stole a gas can from the motel lot, and drove a rusted pickup east toward the mountains. But it wasn't like escaping a wildfire. The shadows were everywhere. Town after town along the highway was silent. Empty cars clogged gas stations. Houses stood with doors flung wide open, lights still on, dinner plates half filled on tables, but no people. And yet the roads weren't empty. I could see them out of the corner of my eye, silhouettes flickering across asphalt without bodies to cast them. They darted along with the trees, keeping pace with me, too fast for any human to move. They weren't following me.
They were guiding me, hurting me, towards something. In a small town outside Bend, I found a working TV set in a diner. Static flickered. And then, to my shock, a live broadcast appeared. Not from the government this time, from a news station in New York. The anchor's face was pale, his suit disheveled. He spoke in a trembling voice. Reports are confirming the phenomena is nationwide. Entire cities without anyone left. He stopped mid-sentence. His jaw clicked unnaturally. Then he looked straight into the camera with eyes gone jet black. "The United States has been emptied," he said, in a voice that wasn't his. "Soon, so will the world." The feed cut. I smashed the TV. I made it to Mount Hood. Snow. Silence. No one around. For a while I thought maybe, just maybe, the shadows couldn't touch me there. They still followed, but not as strong, not as close. But tonight, as I sit in the cabin I broke into, trying to light the fire, I see it clearly in the wooden walls cast by the flame. My own shadow isn't mine anymore. It stands straighter, its head tilted, grinning wide. I don't grin. I haven't smiled in weeks. It's closer than ever. And right now, I can hear it whispering again. Not outside, inside my chest, inside my own breath. Soon. The mountain should have been peace. No cars, no electricity humming, no voices echoing from the dark. But silence here wasn't peace. It was a warning. For 3 days I stayed barricaded in that cabin, living on canned beans, bottled water, and the desperate hope that the snow around me would hold them off. During the day, the sunlight stretched across the frozen landscape, and still I saw shapes moving, shadows slipping across the snow when no bodies cast them. On the third night, I woke with frost on my lips and a hand gripping my throat, except it wasn't mine. My shadow had risen from the floor. Its hand was flat black, icy, pressing on my windpipe. My lungs screamed for air. In desperation, I shoved the lantern from the table to the ground. Glass shattered, light exploded, flame roared. The shadow flinched, dissolved back into the darkness beneath me. I breathed again. But I understood at last. Hiding was only delaying. My shadow wasn't waiting for me to die. It was waiting for me to give up. The next morning, I stepped outside, snow crunching beneath my boots. What I saw above froze me completely. The sky wasn't blue. It was bruised. Clouds spread too fast, too wide, blotting out the sun. Not weather. No. The clouds themselves were shadows, stretching across the United States. The day dimmed in minutes, and in that gray light, every tree, every hut, every mountain slope birthed a second skin, shadows climbing upward like smoke newly freed. It wasn't just Portland anymore. It wasn't just America. The entire world I knew was drowning in itself. And every single one whispered the same words in one collapsing voice. Come home. That night, I wasn't alone. I woke up to a knock at the cabin door. 3 slow hits. My heart should have told me not to open it, but my mind, desperate for company, forced my feet to move. I pulled the door open. It was Anna. Her face looked human. Her eyes looked wet and sad. She smiled faintly, whispering my name in the trembling voice I remembered. Dan, please, you don't have to fight it. Just let go. It won't hurt.
I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But then the firelight caught her face, and her shadow stretched first, wide across the snow, grinning. Her lips didn't sync with the words anymore. The shadow was speaking through her. I slammed the door, locked it, and fell to my knees. Outside, the knock came again. Louder, louder, louder. I haven't slept. I can't write down what day it is anymore. It doesn't matter. Inside the cabin, my shadow no longer obeys me. When I lift my hand, it waves first, taunting. When I blink, it stares without stopping. And now it speaks without whispering. Its voice rolls inside my skull constantly, like a second set of thoughts speaking over mine. You're not Daniel anymore. You were never whole. Open yourself. The worst part, sometimes in the blur between exhaustion and madness, I agree with it. It's night again. The fire's dying. I'm too weak to chop more wood. Too weak to move much at all. I can feel it now. The merging. My chest heavy. My skin crawling like smoke beneath it. Every breath feels borrowed. Every blink less like mine. On the wall, the shadow no longer looks like me. It's taller, arms longer, mouth split ear to ear. It leans closer every second the flames dim. Soon, there will be no light left. When that happens, it will no longer need to whisper. It will move in. I know this is how it ends, not just for me, for everyone. Because this wasn't an invasion. It wasn't demons or ghosts or science gone wrong.
It was the truth finally claiming us. We were never whole. We were only ever half human, and the darker half has finally come back to stay. If anyone finds this, you're already too late. The fire's dead. The shadow's here, and it has my name. There is no Daniel Mercer anymore. There is no I. There is we. The moment the fire died in that cabin, there was no pain, only a widening, a dissolving of the thin line that had once separated me from what followed everywhere I went. One inhale, and I was gone. One exhale, and we remained. It is not death. It is not life. It is arrival. The cities fell first. New York's skyline shimmered with mirrors reflecting nothing but shadow. Los Angeles became a stage where thousands disappeared mid-step, leaving only elongated darkness sliding across boulevards. Washington, D.C. broadcast one final image, the president lifting his hand for reassurance while his darker half stepped ahead, smiling as if the cameras were never his. Highways buckled beneath silence. Shops stood frozen mid-transaction. Shoppers erased while their shadows continued to count bills on empty counters. The United States no longer existed. The map was only black veins spreading outward across oceans. It did not stop with borders. Satellites showed Europe dimming, not from nightfall but from absence. Streets of Paris filled with silhouettes, hand in hand, their human hosts evaporated. In Tokyo, neon lights illuminated nothing but empty clothes swaying, shadows still marching forward. From Cairo to Cape Town, from Sydney to Sao Paulo, the story was identical. Humanity swallowed, shadows reclaiming.
The sun still rose and fell, but it shone on a different species now. And through it all, one chorus rose, layered in uncountable tongues, but saying a single word: whole. It spoke through televisions with no broadcast signal, through radios with no batteries, through rivers reflecting faces that were not there. Children's shadows, elders' shadows, every generation, all one. Somewhere, far beneath the earth, maybe a few fires still burn. Maybe some survivors cling stubbornly to lamps, bonfires, and prayers. But whether tomorrow, or the next day, or the one after, all flames will fail. The dark is patient, and once the light dies, we take back what always belonged to us. You are reading this because it reached you somehow, etched on paper, burned into screens, whispered into your own reflection. You think you are safe because you still walk under sunlight, because you still see yourself in the mirror. But watch closely. Your shadow already knows your name.